It's a big show ahead. The Mountain delivered a great race for 2025. So much to talk about, so much to look back on and look forward to the Gold Coast 500. It's a massive show. There's heaps to get through. Let's get started. It's time for the Undercut. This is the Undercut, once again proudly brought to you by Shell V-Power and the all-new Shell Motorsport Collection. They're available now via Shell OTR and Shell Ready Express stores. Collect all 8 cars over the upcoming weeks. We've got more details on that during the show. Our City Rural Insurance Brokers Classic car is back again for this episode with a fantastic and interesting car from Bathurst history. It's a classic Ford from Bathurst, but it's not a V8. It's not a Falcon or a Mustang. More on that soon. On the panel once again this week are two gents who are, well, in the thick of it at the Bathurst 1000. Jack Perkins, welcome to you. James Moffat, welcome to you. I do have to say though, gents, I was a little worried during the Bathurst 1000. When you two were running nose to tail for a time there, I thought there could be a bit of drama here on the Undercut, but you played nicely.
No dramas here.
No, nothing to worry about, Noons. Press on.
Nice flat bat, nice flat bat. Can you sum up your Bathurst 1000 race day, Jack, in one word?
Well, are we allowed to swear?
I think that's 6 words.
Disappointing.
Moff?
I don't think I can describe it in one word.
One long word with a lot of hyphens, perhaps?
You really put me on the spot here, Noons.
Absolutely, that's what we do on the Undercut here. That's what we do.
I'm going to come back to you on that.
All right, come back to us on this, Jack. What took you and James Courtney out in the end? Because you guys had a really good race running. You were regularly, strongly top 10 there, and then you weren't.
Yeah, I mean, just the Bathurst Blues. You know, every year someone's got a story why they didn't win and why they lost. Unfortunately for us, we've had a pretty serious gearbox failure, which is not something you expect in 2025. So the team is sort of still trying to work out exactly what's gone wrong, but it's it's had a nasty sort of internal disassembly. And it is disappointing, Noons, because to be honest, James had just passed Cooper Murray on track. We were ahead of David Reynolds, and you know, Cooper Murray was leading the race with 6 laps to go. Now, I'm not saying that could have been us, but they would have had to get past us at some point, and I would have loved to have seen JC with the elbows out, 30 laps to go. I don't think he would have left anything on the table. So very disappointing. I think we were certainly looking like being top 5. And like I said, we were ahead of Reynolds. They finished second, so who knows? Woulda, coulda, shoulda.
Who's going to know? James, I guess, were those conditions the worst you've ever raced in at Bathurst in supercars or anything? Because at some points it looked unbelievably wild, particularly at the end there. I mean, probably a good time not to be in the car on that run to the checkered flag.
Yeah, I think that first portion when it started to rain, when most of the co-drivers were in the car, Jack and myself included, those conditions were fine. But certainly probably that period from about, I think, lap 115 to sort of 130, it looked like the conditions were pretty wild, and listening on the radio, Thomas Randall was pretty vocal about how the conditions were. I'm not sure how James Courtney, if he had any feedback, or any other drivers for that matter, but yeah, the new wet tyre certainly did its job, because I think without that new specification of wet tyre, there's no way that we would have seen the cars still remaining under green flag conditions, particularly in that period of heavy rain. But certainly when the rain first came, I found those conditions more than manageable. I'm sure you'd agree, Jack. It's really the biggest issue is when you have safety cars, bunch the field back up, and you get going again under green flag racing conditions. It's the spray when the cars are all bunched up, which is the hardest thing to manage. But once you get a bit of field spread, I certainly thought that the visibility was fine.
One of the things we talked about in the lead up to this race to Bathurst was the fight for the finals, being in the 10. We'll talk about that a bit later in terms of that fight for those spots being kind of overshadowed by the Bathurst 1000, which we preempted on this show. That's probably not the best place to have that happen. But for you, it was about getting Thomas into the 10. The goal was achieved. He's in there. He's the 8th seed going to the Gold Coast. So job done in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, and to sort of answer your question at the top of the show, really, you know, we survived the day.
There's your word, survival.
There's my word, survived. And, you know, there was a brief from the team heading into Sunday that we had to manage that situation for Thomas in terms of ticking that box, securing his spot in the top 8, and certainly the back end of the race, those sort of last 30 or 40 laps, it was probably quite clear in the garage that that was front of mind. Much like Jack and JC, we were probably in a position there for a period of the race that was looking like maybe a top 5, top 6 was on the cards, but a few things didn't roll our way in the back end. And for Thomas, I think it was just about consolidating his track position, getting that spot in the finals, so to be in the top 10 of the championship when they head to the Gold Coast is a big deal for Tickford. They've got both their cars in the top 10, so we achieved that, and good luck to them for the rest of the season.
We're going to talk about finals later in the show, but just quickly, Jack, James Courtney's last Bathurst 1000 as a full-time driver. You guys have driven together for a long time. You presented a helmet to him. I think I saw him tear up at Bathurst. Was it an emotional weekend in the garage knowing that was the backdrop of his last full-time race? And it might be the last time you guys drive together.
Yeah, I mean, I can guarantee it's going to be the last time we drive together. I can't see a situation where two co-drivers will get together, But my wife actually called it when I'd sort of come up with this idea to do JC's original karting helmet design. My wife said that James would probably cry. And he got a bit emotional. I think he said he was a bit speechless at that point. And, for me as a kid growing up, most of the kids around my age, JC was the world karting champion and we all kind of looked up to him. And he could have easily gone on to be a Formula One driver and then came back to Australia. So I just wanted to pay my respects to his career, although it's not over. He's still going to do a bit of racing, but obviously as a primary driver and full-time driver, he's announcing this year will be last year. And then in terms of the race weekend itself, I don't think we were sort of too caught up in it all, but it just would have been really nice to get a great result, even if it was a top 5 or a 6th or 7th. It just would have been nice to get the result, to finish in the garage with a car that had crapped itself, so to speak. Certainly just not a nice way to finish our sort of campaign. 7 years together we've done as co-driver together. So, yeah, I'm sure JC's got, a lot left in him in terms of co-driving, and, I do wish him well moving forward, and he has had a great career.
Is that a scoop? Is that a scoop? Is he going to co-drive?
I would put some money on that he will co-drive, but he's been a bit cagey.
He's very good at the cagey game.
Yeah, he's told.
If anybody is going to know, it would be Perks. So.
He's told people 3 different teams. I don't know. Knowing James, he could probably pull that off.
He'd fly for all of them.
Yeah.
He's probably lobbied with Supercars to get 3 Enduros and do 1 with each team.
Oh, I hope he does get 3 Enduros up. That'd be good.
You'd all get an extra drive. Nothing wrong with that. Now, if we're going to guess where he goes, I mean, I can't help but feel he's desperately needed at GM. They have a lack of star power for next year. Charlie Schwerkott, he has a long relationship with. Simon McNamara, who's now back at GM, long time with Holden. I would reckon if he's going to land anywhere, it would make sense for him to land at Team 18, the GM homologation team. But as you said, he's probably put about 18 different stories out there of what could be possible. But that's the thing that we love about this silly season. It's not just about the main game drivers. It's just as much now about the co-drivers as we go into those endurance races for next year. Now, there's a lot of big topics to sink our teeth into from the great race. And for that, here are the burning questions. So the first question that is an obvious one, and it's on everybody's lips, and there's probably an answer from everybody from all sorts of gamuts of the spectrum. Was this the greatest great race ever? Now, gents, it's easy to say yes in the immediate aftermath of such a zinger of a race at Mount Panorama, but is there any race in history that could hold a candle to 2025?
Well, you're probably the man best placed to answer this question, Noons, because you're not actively involved as a competitor in the race. So I guess when you are a competitor and things don't quite go your way, you probably don't have...
Unless you win,
exactly
it's not
right.
memorable.
I know there's 2 guys that probably think it was the greatest race, being Matt Payne and Garth Tander. But one thing I will say is, it's a very big call to say it's the greatest race ever. Certainly, the wet weather brought the race alive.
But it wasn't exactly a Snorefest dud before it rained.
Well, I think it was heading that way.
But it could have gone that way, but it didn't.
Yeah, so in my opinion, the rain probably saved it. But, I'll let you make the judgment call on whether you think it was the greatest race ever. I think there's been some good ones in the past.
There's been some.
2007 springs to mind. That was a cracker.
Yeah, it was. But a lot of these races are. We look back at them because they were great because of the finish. Whether it was 2014 with that great fight between Chaz and Jamie out of fuel, the hour delay during the race. There was a lot of weird stuff that happened in the lead up and during that day. There's been some great one-on-one races. 93 with your old man and Greg Hansford and Scafie and Jimmy Richards. Jimmy with the Volvo. He and Stephen Richards in the Super Touring days. They went at it all day, those two cars. But I don't remember a race that had that much hand-to-hand combat for the positions that mattered and didn't matter. If you had said to me 15 years ago that the top three would be nose to tail on the run down Conrod Straight, so it was Payne, was Golding, Cooper Murray, one of them's nearly sideways off the road backwards into the grass at 6 laps to go, whatever it was. It had all the bits that we'll remember and talk about for a long time, but there were all these things we forgot because so much happened in the aftermath. Normally when you saw that the winning car ran over a shock on the road, you'd be saying, wow, that's the big get out of jail free card. But so much stuff happened after that was easy to forget.
Yeah, it was. And I think, look, there's certainly been plenty of great Bathurst in answering the original question there. The thing for me just really highlights how we need to make sure the sport's entertaining. And we've probably relied quite heavily on the rain in that race to really spice it up. But the amount of people, I think we've earned new fans from how entertaining it was. The amount of people that I've spoken to where, they've said, hey, my wife started watching the race. She never normally watches it and actually grabbed a drink and watched the whole race because it was entertaining. So we just need to ensure technically what we do with the cars creates this level of racing we saw in the wet. And we've seen the last 2 years in the dry, that hasn't happened. Yeah. Now, I don't have an answer for that, but it just highlights if it's an entertaining race, people love it, and that's what gets bums on seats.
One of the things that I watched during the race, so while the race was on, I'm sitting in the back of the commentary box with Neil Crompton and Mark Scaife, with Scott Sinclair, who's a race-winning engineer, and Jess Yates is in the box during the race, keeping an eye on things. And I'm able to look at all the data that I'm looking at for the TV broadcast, but I'm also looking at the V8 Sleuth website numbers. And it was absolutely amazing and made total sense that with about 40 laps to go, people were Googling who is Cooper Murray. Because our Google Analytics show what stories people are looking at on our website, and Cooper Murray's driver profile page and a story about how he was aiming to put it all on the line for pole position. They were clicking up a storm right then. So people were watching at home with that question, who's Cooper Murray? We need to find more ways to have more people watching this stuff who don't know who these people are, who want to know who these people are, because now he's that guy that got tipped out to win Bathurst, that there's a story there. If you're not a hardcore tragic, you kind of know who he is.
They might have had a Chico roll for dinner too.
They may very well have had a Chico roll for dinner. It was almost Chico rolls all round. They were on target there to maybe become the youngest ever combination to win Cooper Murray and Joe. But there was, so many storylines to all this. We kind of washed away all the controversy of the lead-up, really.
And it probably also helped that the race went past 6 o'clock, so I'm sure there were a lot of people out there that might have been sitting down to watch the 6 o'clock news that flicked on Channel 7, and the race was really going off at that point. So that, I'm sure, would have engaged a few people as well.
And there was a lot of people who said that the late start is no good, but the other element was that it pushed, because it was a wet race, it pushed it back into the news time that people were, as you mentioned, clicking on expecting to watch the news, but finding supercars and being forced to watch. So the numbers went through the roof, because the whole aim of the game is for the race to finish, the podium to finish, and to roll into the news. But when people are expecting the news and they see a car race, they kind of cop the car race and they have to take it that way before they get to the news. But one of the big questions in the aftermath of all of this is, did James Golding deserve a penalty? He got 5 seconds added onto his race time for that contact with Cooper Murray at Griffin's Bend Turn 2. In my mind, I think the call was right. It wasn't a 15-seconder. It wasn't a pit lane penalty. He was in, but not all the way in, and that was the right situation.
Go ahead, Perks. I'll let you.
I'll leave it to the race drivers.
There's so many parts to this, Noons. Like, for me, I find it so frustrating that the car that crossed the checkered flag first didn't win the race. That's the first thing, which we saw back in 2016 with Whincup. And then I'm frustrated for James and his team, because he obviously had the pace and just needed to bide his time. And passing into turn 2 is a hard prospect in the dry, let alone in the wet. And like Cooper Murray might have even said, as soon as you go offline, you were hitting the puddles, and it was so. There's so much to it. Ultimately, he was then able to get back past and to the effective race lead on the road. So I don't think Cooper Murray had the pace at that point of the race. He wasn't able to get back up after, unless there was damage to the car. But it sort of looked like the wind had come out of the sails a little bit in that car, with respect. So you think, Golding, why didn't you just readdress it or something?
Well, the
in
other
the heat
problem
of the
was
moment?
there was another car between them by the time that happened. So the concept of pulling over and letting Cooper get back past was gone, because Payne's in the mix there and taking off too. So, and in that weather as well, by driving slower than you possibly can spray, it's a really tricky one. But I mean, if you look at the vision, if Murray's not there, James is going straight on at turn 2. Maybe not all the way to the wall, but he's not able to turn the corner as he should at that line.
Yeah. Look, I think, based on the wording in the rule book and the significant overlap that the officials want achieved by the turn-in point,
he's not quite there.
The penalty was there. I have a slight problem with the 5-second penalty, I must admit, because we saw some examples through the race where a bump and run.
Well, your car got one early with Thomas,
which that's maybe a separate discussion, because I felt like LeBrock had shortcut the Skyline chicane. There's an advantage in that. Probably shouldn't have been in front of Thomas at that point. I thought the bump and run at the final corner was probably fair play on. But the fact that Cooper Murray lost more than one position, I don't see how those two instances, if you like, are the same penalty, especially for what was at stake. And I know we judged the incident on the incident, not necessarily the outcome, but I just sort of question the 5-second penalty. But
as a concept.
Yes, as a concept, based on the positions that Cooper lost in the process. But the one thing, I've got full respect for James Golding for having a crack.
Totally.
He had a crack. He was never going to die wondering. And, okay, yes, we can definitely form the argument, you could have been maybe a bit more patient, bided your time. But at that point in time, he went on his instincts. He saw an opportunity. He thought he could make it happen. And it didn't quite pay off for him, but he wanted and was trying to win the biggest race of the year. So full respect to him for that.
And further to Moff's point, I guess that's the frustrating thing with some of these time penalties and whether you get one or not. We don't want to discourage James Golding having a crack to win Bathurst.
Exactly.
We don't want to be happy to finish second. We want to have a crack. So if you've got to think, well, what's the penalty going to be? That's, I don't know. I haven't really answered your question, Noons, but there's been some good sort of thoughts put forward, hasn't there?
And I think that's a great point. I mean, we constantly want as a sport and as viewers for the drivers to have a crack. I mean, you are always out there having a crack. Sometimes it doesn't look like it because there's no passing happening, but the reality is you're all absolutely pushing 10/10s. But what we saw at Bathurst was drivers who, really had a chance to make a name for themselves. And I don't think James Golding lost any fans out of what he and Premier Racing and David Russell did at Mount Panorama.
Do you think he deserved a penalty, Noons?
Yes.
Yep.
And 5 seconds.
And you're
was
happy
fine.
with the 5 seconds?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. It was a small one. It wasn't a big nasty one. 5 seconds, no more. Didn't need 15, didn't need anything else. And you've got to strip away that it's at Bathurst and that it's 6 laps to go. You've got to treat it no different if it was lap 2 or lap 120 or a similar scenario at another racetrack. I mean, yep, the prize on the line's huge, but you've just got to judge each particular instance for the instance and for the driving that was going on there, not what track it is or how many million people are.
So we might be going a bit off here. So the Brodie Kostecki one with Kai Allen then gets a pit lane penalty. You could argue at the time, okay, yep, that was a clear error from Brodie, but Kai probably only lost maybe 2 or 3 positions in that process.
I was surprised at that being a pit lane penalty. So I thought that might have been 15 seconds.
So where do we get 5 second, 15 seconds pit lane penalty? So that's.
That one did get my attention during the race, wondering quite what was the scenario there. And I must admit, I haven't had a chance to catch up with Craig Baird and ask for his reasoning as a driving standards advisor. We'll move to the next one. Was there ever a chance for change? And the reason why I asked that question is about the lead up to the race, the push from DJR, led by Brodie Kostecki, who turned every interview into being about parity. The simple reality in all of this, that no matter how much pressure or how much it was talked about, there was not grounds to change the cars for Bathurst because of the way that the racing charters worked. It needed 100% of teams to agree to it, and that was never going to happen.
Yeah, it's such a tricky conversation, Noons, because, you know, I've got full respect for Brodie Kostecki and their team, but they were on pole position whinging about car speed. So it doesn't sort of pass the pub test at that point.
Not for the general fan.
Correct. And look, I must admit when I watched the race back in the dry, it did appear as though Fords were getting passed by Chevs. Now, that's just an observation. I'm not buying into the argument, but those Red Bulls, if it was dry, they passed 3 or 4 Fords each, and I didn't see a Ford pass a Chevy back. Now, that's, again, I'm not really answering the question, but...
Bit of fence sitting here going on,
But the push to get change, you're sort of getting off the fence, but the push to try and get change when you're sitting on pole, it's just never going to happen, is it?
Particularly for the race that has the most general viewers of the year who would say, well, hang on a minute, as you said, you're on pole position, you've got 4 Fords in the top 4 positions. But I think if I look back on the way that all rolled out over the course of the race weekend, particularly through into the Saturday night, that I think that the situation wasn't helped by the Brodie side of things. He probably needed to get to the point of exactly what the issue was. Clearly there was an edict that they were going to go after this, but it needed to be a simple scenario that, look, the lap time's equivalent, like the cars are pretty close, you could see it in the times. The speeds on the straights, you could look at some of those numbers and go, well, okay, depending on what lap, what car. But listening and speaking to a range of people around the paddock, it's more about the case of how the cars, particularly at the long straights of Bathurst, a Camaro's just got a bit more punch a bit earlier in the straight, which if it's behind gets it to the toe, which gets it the toe, which can get it past. Now, that problem's not so much a problem at other tracks where the straights aren't so long, but that's sort of the crux of the issue. It wasn't the overall lap time or the terminal top-end speed, it was how it gets to that speed and the difference between the two cars to do that.
Yeah, and especially it's I guess the issue becomes even more significant when you've got 90 kilos of fuel in the cars versus on a qualifying lap when there's, you know, by the end of qualifying there's 10 or 15 kilos of fuel in the cars. So the thing for Brodie is, even though I feel like, you know, he's sort of become the poster boy for this discussion and has really taken it on, it appears that he has taken it upon himself.
He did. He definitely
but
did.
He, out of the driving group, is best placed to comment on this because he's come from the Camaro. He won the championship in 2023, won Bathurst last year in the Camaro. So I think he has the credentials and everything behind him to be able to comment the way he has. But it also comes down to the fact that Supercars had the ability to, I think, control this better. Just either put it to bed and just get on with it. And I think what's probably been overlooked in all this is the fact that the rain came, the race went off its head, and we got the race that we probably all desperately wanted. And fortunately for Supercars, that happened because this whole parity discussion sort of got pushed to a side.
It literally got washed away.
Yeah, so
for a time.
But yeah, you're right. It was never going to happen. Why would the Camaro teams give the Ford competitors more of or an advantage potentially going into the biggest race of the year? If it was on the other, if the shoe was on the other foot, I would expect Ford to do the exact same.
100%.
And I think too, from discussing it with some of the people behind the scenes, that the Chev teams felt that they were asked to come to the party before the bend to get that 1 kilometre of speed that the Fords needed, so that aero change that was a pre-existing aero package was put back on the Fords for the bend, and then they felt that, hang on, they've come asking for more here. And under the charter, that all the teams have a charter, there must be 100% agreement that's in the deal that is with all the teams and the team's racing charter. Once the supplementary regulations have been issued for a race event, for the Repco Bathurst 1000, everyone had to be in agreement. If sup-regs haven't been issued for an event, you need 75% minimum. So it was just a case of that's the paperwork, that's the rules that the championship and the charter holders work by. And no matter how much pressure was being put on publicly, that wasn't going to change.
Yep. And further to your point, Ford finished 1, 2, 3 at Tail and Bend. So you can sort of see there might have been a bit of resistance, especially from the Chev side, because, you know, it might have been a real whitewash the other way. So, Look, it's going to be even more interesting next year. Obviously, as we know, the leading Chevy team, Triple Eight's moving to Ford. So, basically, it's like a political team switching parties in Australia. The Labor blokes are now the Liberals. It's going to be a massive change in philosophy. So, watch this space, I say.
It wasn't a surprise at Bathurst to see that there were a range of teams who just did not make public comment. You had Triple Eight, of course, who are going Chev to Ford. You had BJR going Chev to Toyota. Walkinshaw's are going Ford to Toyota. So I think there was a whole pile of people just going, we're just going to get on with our business here because we've got too much other stuff going on. So it is an interesting topic, and it's not the last that you'll have heard of it. But one of the ones that I wanted to pose, did the big dogs choke at Mount Panorama at this year's Bathurst 1000? Because when you looked at those drivers and teams that we all penciled in as the ones to watch to win this race, all the big names made mistakes on a day where it was very easy to make mistakes, but there are others who didn't.
Yeah, I will answer this question. I think yes is the answer. If it stayed dry, it's a bit of a weird thing to say. I think the Red Bulls were going to dominate that race.
They were just starting to come into that, weren't they?
But as it turned out, it rained, and both the primary drivers, Brock Feeney, leading the championship, dominated this year, made a mistake. Crashed the car. Will Brown.
Probably the first mistake we've seen him make, to be fair.
Correct. And Will Brown, same thing, made a mistake, crashed the car at turn 2. On the other side of that, though, Chaz Mostert choked, but it wasn't his doing. Obviously, the engine.
Well, the engine choked.
Yeah, the engine choked.
Might have choked on some beers.
So that is 100%. When you've got the leading Red Bull drivers crashing, they've choked. That's sort of the quickest one I can answer for you, Nudes.
And Mark Winterbottom also crashed the Cam Waters car. That took them out of play to challenge for victory. So, it was an easy day to make an error in those sorts of conditions. But when we look at the error rate, it was the big teams and the big drivers who we would look to perhaps not be the guys to do that. We saw some great performances from some of the co-drivers, some of the younger drivers. It was the big names that we were seeing in the fence.
Yeah, and I guess that first period of the race when it rained, started to rain, a majority of the field was co-drivers, and we sort of went that sort of 25, 26 laps without a safety car. So I think I rewatched the race, and it was said in the commentary by either Neil or Mark that, the fact that we didn't see a safety car with so many co-drivers in the cars was very commendable. So I guess that probably also shows the quality of co-drivers, both inexperienced and experienced throughout the field, is of a very high level.
We had 7 Bathurst 1000 rookies, and I think if you looked at all of them, they all did a great job at various stages over the weekend. But a guy that you mentioned before, James, is the next topic for my question. Did Chaz Mostert win or lose at Bathurst? Now, I would say he's a winner, and the sport's a winner because he went and had a beer.
Yep.
Well, the one thing he did lose, though, is his 100% finishing record of Bathurst.
He did.
But yeah, clearly that was very disappointing because, engine failure. And knowing Chaz, he would have...
Do you reckon he deliberately parked there?
Absolutely. That thing was obviously dying coming down Conrod, and he might have been able to get it back to pit lane, or he had the choice to stop it there in front of Robbo's, who's... a famous venue there on Conrod Street.
Selfies. I did notice, though, he accepted the beer, but he said no to the burger. I would have thought by that stage of the day, you may as well eat it.
Well, he'd only just hopped in, actually, so he hadn't done much work. So he'd probably just earned himself a beer, but not a burger.
That car, that was off song for 10, 12 laps when Fabian Coulthard was driving. So it was a dead duck. It was just a case of when and where it was actually going to stop. But when you look at what Bathurst does, I saw that on socials, that video shared by Instagrammers, TikTokers, all sorts of social people who don't follow motor racing. It was one of those moments, as soon as it happened, that happened behind us. Chaz leaning back, I think he's had a bit of practice over the years there. Immediately, that's a classic Bathurst moment that goes and transcends the sport beyond the racing tragics who will talk about it for the next 10 years. People on the street, people who don't follow supercars, now know Chaz Mostert. He's the guy that cracked the beer at Bathurst. In a moment like Scott McLaughlin and the Jandal in Adelaide, it's the one that general people out there will now know.
Oh, 100%. And I remember when Paul Radisic's engine blew up in the Dick Johnson car and he fed the horse.
Fed the horse.
Grabbed some chaff off the ground and fed the horse. It's iconic. And good on Chaz for grabbing a beer. Unfortunately, in this day and age, couple of people probably look around their shoulders and go, I don't know if I'm allowed to do this. So who cares? He's out of the race, have a beer, and I think he might have even picked up a Great Northern sponsorship deal, so good on him.
Well, if you can get a deal, you've got to take the deals however they can come. And straight away for Chaz, he wasn't holding around. He had to go to Indy for the weekend where he drove with Kenny Habul and Will Power in a Mercedes in a International GT Challenge race, which helped Kenny win his respective title there. But a great moment. And yes, we are counting Chaz Mostert as a winner at the 2025 Bathurst 1000, even though he didn't get to stand on the podium. Now, we mentioned a little bit earlier, there was a range of rookies and co-drivers and main drivers who did a great job. So my question is, who raised their stocks at the Bathurst 1000 this year? And I've got a pretty long list here of guys who did, which is kind of indicative of how that race unfolded, because a lot of people made a name for themselves.
They sure did, Noons. I think in those tricky conditions, it really gives young drivers or any driver an opportunity to make a name for himself. And I think if you had to ask me one that really stood out, I would have thought Jaden Ojeda. His drive there in the wet was brilliant. You know, he sort of reeled in a deficit to Davey Russell and just didn't put a foot wrong. Had great pace, even versus Ryan Wood. That car was obviously quick in wet conditions, but versus his main driver, did a superb job. But the list, as you say, is endless. There was plenty of guys that did a great job.
I thought Kai Allen, just to stay in the race. Everybody tried to take him out.
Wasn't he a punching bag, unfortunately? And it's a miracle that that car finished the way that he was getting smashed into.
Well, he got brodied.
Yep, he got Will Brown.
He got Will Brown.
He got LeBrock.
He got LeBrock. That 26 car also ran over the shock from the Tony D'Alberto crash, as well as the car that went on to win the race. And then the video emerged at the end of the weekend.
With the roof.
Of nearly hitting the kangaroo on Conrod Straight. And he's made it into the finals and finished in the top 10 at Bathurst. I mean, he and Dale Wood, that is the wildest they've ever seen, but they got a result.
Yeah, they certainly did, you know, and that goes to show you just don't give up around Bathurst. You keep fighting, and you know, for them to make the finals is a really big achievement for Kai. Remember, his rookie year, so congratulations to them for making the finals as well.
I think Ryan, you talked about Jaden Ojeda, but Ryan Wood, I mean, we should definitely talk about Ryan, because the drive he put in on the weekend up at Bathurst, where he's come in the last 6 or 7 rounds, he's real deal. And I know he's only just made it into the finals. He's the 9th seed going into the Gold Coast, but I reckon he's going to contend here. I reckon he's going to be a factor that can work his way through.
The thing that impressed me about Ryan Wood over the weekend at Bathurst was, yes, he made the shootout, but the lap he did in the shootout, he put that together to qualify on the second row of the grid, when he has been known to make some mistakes under pressure in shootouts, most recently at the Bend, which really put them out of position for the rest of that weekend. So in the ultimate pressure stakes, Bathurst top 10 shootout, he delivered a great lap, and that really set them up for the rest of for the race. And had it not been for that electrical problem that they had with the crank sensor, you know, both those guys will be thinking what could have been.
And that car led more laps than anybody else in the 2025 race. And that video, I'm not sure if you've seen it, they'd given up. They were done. They were like, you know what, this car's out of the race. We are cooked. But they went in. Justin Burns and the boys got in there, got it sparked up to life. There's a great video, if you can find it on socials, of when it roars into life and they all run around like crazy to get Ryan Wood back in the car. That got him into the finals. I mean, that's how crucial it is to just never give up and find a way to get back in the game. But I think he raised his stocks. Aaron Cameron and Zach Best in your other car at the Blanchard Racing Team, they deserve a lot of credit. Surely Aaron Cameron gets a seat there for next year. He's done so many great things. The young Tickford guys, Ryland Gray and Lockie Dalton, I know they started down the back, stayed out of trouble, finished in the middle of the pack. They had a really solid run too. Yeah,
they did. And Ryland asked me on Sunday morning, he's like, have you got any advice, Moff? And I said, mate, the best thing you can do is just not make the highlights package, because when you are a
it was pretty easy
like that,
to this year.
You generally only make the highlights package for being in an accident or making a mistake, and those guys, you know, with only a handful of laps to go, were right on the back of the top 10. So both himself, Ryland, and Lockie Dalton, they should be congratulated, because, you know, to survive in those conditions as rookies was a very, very good effort. So, yeah, congratulations to both of them. The other person that I've got to have raised their stocks outside co-driver or rookie drivers is Cooper Murray. I thought, you know, he didn't look out of place at all throughout the weekend. inside the top 10, delivered a great lap in the top 10 shootout, was looking like being in contention to win the race or a podium. So I think, you know, he proved that if he's got the car underneath him, that he is more than capable of running at the front of the field against the regular heavy hitters in the championship.
And we know Erebus can put together a really good car at the Bathurst 1000, but the way that 99 car was going, we had to dive for the record books mid-race, because had they got up and won Cooper Murray and Job Stewart, they would have been the youngest ever combination to win. Job would have been the youngest ever winner. And had the Payne Tander car fallen a bit further back in the order, they would have won the Repco Enduro Cup, and Cooper would have had a ticket into the finals. I mean, when you look at it and you would have thought that there's no way someone outside the 10 is going to win the Enduro Cup. We very nearly saw it. We could have seen this amazing extra element to that story at Bathurst, where not only do they win the race, but then they go and get him into the finals as well.
Well, yeah, and Cooper Murray's mega weekend kind of really started in qualifying. Up until that stage, they'd shown a little bit of pace, but nothing that looked like it was going to be the top 2 or 3 in pace, and in qualifying just did such a great job. You know, I even sort of predicted him for getting pole in the shootout. He was driving that well. But further to your point, and they did do a great job. It should be mentioned as well that they were very competitive at Tail and Bend, ran up the front of the field there all day. So it wouldn't have been, a big shock had they have won the Cup, but it would have definitely shaken up the finals order, because Cooper Murray's, where is he in the normal points? 18th.
Yeah.
So if he had have elevated himself into the 10 and then got deep into the finals, then a lot of people would have been asking some questions about the format. But good on him for having a crack, and for Job as well. Quick question is, who is the youngest winners? Is it Lowndes and Murphy 96?
Yeah, 1996.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, Rick Kelly, the youngest individual driver to win the race.
Yep.
Something that we preempted on this show in the last episode was the finals battle overshadowed. Now, because we got such an amazing race, because there were so many elements going on, the finals of who was in and who was out all changed actually on the last lap with the way that things unfolded. But there was no way that you could take your eye off the win for the biggest race of the year and start, whether it's in the broadcast or any other way, talking about the guys who are fighting for 6th and 8th and what it all means for the rest of the year. The broadcast had to stick with the win for the race, and this is going back to our point that if you've got a half-decent Bathurst, it's all about Bathurst. So you should decide the finals at a race and a track where you might not get such a good race, so we should do it at the Bend, because some of those storylines would have actually played out. They took another couple of days to play it after Bathurst.
Yep, I think you've answered your own question there, Noonan. So, certainly, obviously, what was happening at the front of the field took precedence in the coverage, and but you're right, there was a lot still playing out in the back end of the 10. So much so that I believe that Brock Feeney passed Heimgartner on the last lap,
and that put him out.
Yeah,
yep,
so
that put Heimgartner out to the point where he and Cam Hill ended up tied on points, 11th and 12th on the outside looking in. So, I mean, those storylines got overshadowed, but we already had the fix for this, didn't we? We preempted this.
Well, and it's interesting though, too, because you see this in the AFL in the premiership season, the last couple of games, the good teams are at the front in the finals, but there's always these battles deep between, whoever's right on the cusp. So it should be mentioned that it does also happen, obviously, in other sports, which is arguably what we're trying to do here with the final series. So it creates a bit of hype, but I think you're right. I don't know. It's an interesting one. I like the idea of winning Bathurst and getting yourself straight through to Adelaide as well, if you were to cut it off at the Bend, because it should carry a lot of weight, Bathurst. But I mean, good. I still stand by Supercars. Good on for having a crack. It's going to take a little bit to get it all perfect for everyone, but so far I think it's good. And to have such a good battle for the last spot was fantastic.
Now, we've dealt with who's in the 10. So the next question for me: who are the 7 that survived the Boost Mobile Gold Coast 500? And I must raise, I've got a concern here for the guy who we've already talked about. Chaz Mostert's 6th at the moment with the way that the points have been recalculated and reset. But I'm really worried about him, because when I really look at his year, when you look at the Gold Coast, you don't want to qualify mid-pack. He's the 10th best qualifier of the season. He's made 8 of the 11 shootouts. You're going to have to make both shootouts on the Gold Coast because there's one for each race. In shootouts this year, he's had a couple of 3rds, 8ths, 9ths and a 10th. he's not setting the world on fire here. And with the way the safety car rules are now, double stacking for teams with 2 cars in the finals is going to become a real issue. So I'm worried for him.
Yeah.
Well, let's not talk too much about the safety car rules because they'll probably change between now and the Gold Coast anyway.
I don't think they will. But
I wouldn't be riding off Chaz Mostert.
I haven't written him off. I'm just concerned.
He knows how to get it done around the streets of the Gold Coast, and I expect him to definitely still be a contender. But
who's out? Who doesn't make it?
Well, for me, my 7 making it through the Gold Coast is Feeney, Payne, Kostecki, Waters. I've got Mostert, Wood and Randall.
So
Brown out.
I've got Randall in there based on his 2024 form.
Had a podium.
Had a podium.
And Brown out.
Brown out.
Will Brown out?
Because of what you just said, Noons, about Chaz Mostert and his qualifying. Will Brown's qualifying has been nowhere near good enough of recent.
But compared to Brock Feeney rather than the rest of the field.
Exactly. Well, missed the top 10 at Bathurst, missed the top 10 at the Bend.
Yep.
So unless Will Brown can find a way to qualify in those first top 5, his race pace is absolutely good enough.
Yeah.
But he's making too much hard work for himself in the races, and he doesn't have 1,000 kilometres to make up the difference at the Gold Coast. They're only 300 kilometre races or 250s.
Yep.
So that for me is the person that is potentially on the bubble. I know that's a big call.
But further to your point, Moff, that puts him in double stacking situation by virtue of his teammate. Pretty good chance he's going to qualify ahead of him. So that's the vulnerability you get if you don't out-qualify your teammate. A big double stacky at the Gold Coast could see you running potentially top 5 to being buried in 15th, 16th, 17th. So that could have massive ramifications on the finals.
The screen behind us, when you're in the pack on the Gold Coast, stuff like that can and is likely.
Well,
you look at who's in the 10, you've got 2 888 cars, you've got 2 Grove cars, you've got 2 Walkinshaw cars, and you've got 2 Tickford cars. So there's a whole pile of storylines here that are going to make it really interesting.
Yeah, and it's interesting, that graphic you got there, that's Brock Feeney right over your shoulder there, Noons, and he struggled his first couple of years at the Gold Coast.
Yep.
Now, I don't think Brock's likely to miss out, but I just think it's great. There's question marks over basically everyone there about their consistency of form, the team's ability to give them cars to win the race, and then the pit stops and the strategy is going to play a big cycle. So I'm not bold enough to predict who's going to be out, but I think it's going to be very entertaining.
I don't think it's easy to pick. It's not a case of that the bottom 3 are that far away with what could happen on the Gold Coast. I've got Mostert, Allen and Randall missing out, but we'll wait and see. Tipping is always a very
your
difficult.
predictions at Bathurst were pretty spot on. So
I got pole and I got the win, so I didn't get anything for it. But nevertheless, we'll wait and see because it's that sort of place where anything can and usually does happen. But they are the burning questions. What the answers are, I guess we'll have to wait and see. Time now for one-way traffic, and we've got a 4-way desk because we've got the winner of the Repco Bathurst 1000. He's now a 6th-time winner of the great race. Garth Tander, welcome to the Undercut. Good to see you.
G'day, guys. Sorry, thanks for having me firstly, but sorry my sports jacket was in the dry cleaners.
You didn't get the memo, did you?
Didn't get the memo, so I just had to throw a jumper.
The email.
Thanks for having me on.
No, thank you for coming on. We know you've had a busy week in the aftermath of winning Bathurst, which being busy is a good thing when you've won the Bathurst 1000. But there's so many elements to talk to you about this because there were so many things that happened, not just to your car, but to everybody else's in that race. But tell me about the power of winning Bathurst. I mean, you know, your first one was back in 2000. You've won 6 now. But is this one different in a way because of the race, because of the eyeballs, because of all the stuff that was going on? Has there been a bigger reaction for this one?
Well, the ratings numbers are huge, as you guys know, and that all got reported post the event. But like, for me, it was the thing. I was back to reality, so did all the media Monday morning, drove back to Melbourne Monday afternoon. Tuesday morning, I had a pre-existing commitment with my son Sebastian. He goes to high school next year, and I had orientation breakfast for him. And you're wandering, and 20 dads that I've never met before in my life are like, well, back to reality for you. And I'm like, oh, so you saw the race on the weekend? They're like, oh, yeah. So, and then even like MotoGP. I mean, I was at the local IGA the other day, and just, you know, some guy buying his milk and bread. It's like, oh, congratulations on the race win. And, you know, it's been more of that in the week post the event than I've ever experienced before. So certainly the eyeballs were big. And everyone that said to me, I sat down to watch it for 5 minutes and didn't get up for the last 3 hours. So, I mean, that normally doesn't happen in our race.
It's a bit of a common theme, that, Garth. Now, are you saying that winning 6 has elevated you from 5th? After you won your 5th race, did you not get people bailing you up in the street? Or?
Yeah, you do. Yeah. You're right, AJ.
Because I'm hoping if I get 1 that I'm going to get a bit of that.
Does. I mean, it does. So it's just calm down. But it just seems like for me there's more of it this time. Because, I mean, people, the ratings numbers came out and they were big. Yeah. They're starting to talk, giving AFL Grand Final a run for its money, NRL Grand Final a run for its money. And you always go, you take that with a grain of salt. But then walking about in population...
And you're not in Team Kid. You're just in your Joe Bloke.
No, mate, I'm trying to be as incognito as possible. And it's, people are, noticed and know what you've achieved. Usually that sort of lasts Monday after, Tuesday after, and then it washes out of the news cycle, and then something else happens, and it's sort of everyone's moved on. But this is like 7 days after, 8 days after, these sorts of things going on, which is great for the sport. I mean, It's not about me, it's about the sport, and I think that's fantastic.
When we go right back to when you won your last Bathurst, 2022 with Shane Van Gisbergen.
Right back. I thought you were going to go 2000.
No, well, I'm going back there a bit later on. But talk to me about at the time when you came out and announced that you were going to Grove Racing. I think it caught a lot of people on the hop.
Yeah.
Does what happened at Bathurst this year justify that decision?
Yeah, I think it does. And I said in the press conference afterwards that, people always ask you, what's your favourite Bathurst? And, you can't. They're all fantastic for all their own unique reasons. But this one, because of the work that I've been involved with this race team out of the car, is probably more than in the car. So, for me, seeing how this team is built and it's continued to grow and build and get some momentum going. Obviously, Matt's going fantastically well in the championship. The team's second in the team's championship. You guys were just talking about Kai being in the finals as a rookie. Just being part of all that growth has been fantastic. But then to have success with the team as a driver at the biggest race of the year, for me was, really, really special, because I was, a very small part of that growth to get the team to where it needed to be to do that.
Was there a specific point in the race where you thought we're a genuine chance here? Because starting 18th, I'm not quite sure.
There's probably a few spots where you thought you weren't a chance with all the stuff that happened.
Oh, yeah. I think realistically, once it started raining, and you were talking about that period of the race where it went from dry to wet, and there was probably about 10 laps where we were all skidding around on slicks, hot slicks on a track that's getting wetter and wetter and wetter. And I'm like, this is the moment, this is the opportunity. And I passed 4 or 5 cars in that period. The team got the call to get to wets the exact right time, and we were sort of, before the rain came, we were 14th.
There were a few teams that didn't.
Yeah, there were a few teams that couldn't make their mind up, so they had a couple of goes at it. And look, you would joke about that, but that's so hard to get right. And like, even when we put wets on, I'm like, man, it's too early.
Yeah, I was behind you in the safety car, and I was saying the same thing.
I said it once, I was thinking it a lot, and I said it once on the radio, and they're like, don't worry, it's gonna rain. I was like, yeah, man, it's Bathurst. It could be black over the back of the mountain and just go around us. But they got it right. So it was in that period of the race when the race changed from a dry race to a wet race, and we knew once it started raining, it was going to keep raining. I thought then we were a chance.
One of the things that I want to show the guys is some vision here from during the race. I mean, we saw what was going on the track, but what was going on in the garage we could have watched all day long. Yeah. Have a look at this. Up the back there's Brenton Grove, there's Ben Nightingale, Cam Kirby from Ford, cheering and jumping. You're not moving.
No, it's Andrew Burkick.
You've seen it all here. Look at you. You're going nowhere.
Yeah. No, I was literally on the radio at that point, on the intercom in the garage, saying, "Calm down. There's a long way to go." I think that was when Matt got the lead when Golding and Murray came together at turn 2. And obviously it's a big moment because you're in the lead of the race.
And that's you grabbing Jack.
Yeah, I was like, whoa, just calm down. It's a long way to go. At that stage, 5 laps to go, 15 minutes of racing in the rain, anything could happen. So you just got to execute and stay calm to the end.
It was the great race. But tell me about the celebrations that occur in the aftermath. I know you've spoken about this in the previous week, that there's not much time. By the time you sort of do the media stuff, do the Fox Sports chat, do the media conference, have the car go through scrutineering, it's kind of a big mission just to get to the point of having a drink and something to eat. But how does a 2025 Bathurst 1000 celebration compare to, say, 2000 Leagues Club spec in Bathurst, Garth? Because I'm guessing they're a little bit different.
Oh, well, I was 23 in 2000 at Leagues Club, and
No iPhones back then.
no iPhones, so they didn't have to worry about social media.
Bounce back on Monday morning a bit sharper. When
Yeah,
you're
I was
23,
probably a
don't
little dustier in 2000 than I was in 25. But yeah, the race went late because of the rain. So the race finished late. You do the podium, you do the Fox stuff, you do the press conference. And I think by the time we got back to the garage, it was like 8:30. And then, you know, you don't want to just get changed and bugger off, so you're hanging around the guys. The garage has taken longer than normal to pack up because everyone's up and about. Car didn't pass scrutineering until about 10 o'clock that night, just because it takes that long. But so by the time the team got loaded up, we left a little bit early. And there's a bit of a story here. You're talking about Great Northerns earlier with Chaz. Heath Meldrum, who's Matt's trainer and physio and looks after him over the course of the weekend. Now, Heath's body is a temple.
True,
Okay, so
true.
nothing goes into Heath's body that shouldn't, except on Sunday night at Bathurst, it seems. So I charged Heath, Matt and Kai to go to Bottle Shop, get some beers on the way back to the house because we'll have a couple of beers.
That was your first mistake, wasn't
They
it?
wouldn't have known what to get.
So first thing, you know, this tells you how old I am now. First thing is Matt's like, I don't have my ID. What do you need your ID for? Well, I still get asked for my ID. So anyway, they figure out, they go to the bottle shop. So anyway, they buy a box of beer and they turn up at the house and like Heath's like, I don't get it. It says there's only 12 bottles in this big thing.
Oh no, they're non-alcoholic, aren't they?
No. It's okay, it's not that bad. And he's like, I don't get it, I don't understand. Like they charged us like $75 and there's only 12 bottles. So they rip the box open. They're like, long necks.
Oh, long necks.
So they were having long necks on Sunday
Everyone
night
had
afterwards.
long
So it was quite funny. But Jesus, guys, they got to lift their game when they go to the bottle shop.
Yeah. True.
Speaking about Matt, and then this is not a dig, but his heart rate in the post-race interview was lower than what it would have been if he had just got pole or fastest in a practice session. What's going on? Is he just that cool, calm?
That's Matt.
I couldn't believe it. I thought, man, you just won the biggest race of the year, and his heart rate was back on about 65.
I think one of your cattle prods instead of getting one. But, yeah, I mean, that's why he was able to do what he did at the end of the race and manage all that stuff because his heart rate is so low. He doesn't get excited, doesn't get carried away with it. And that's Matt. Like, it takes a lot. I mean, I've never seen him actually really get going. That's just his makeup.
Yep.
So, you know, we can have a joke, and I do have a joke with him. And even Jess said to me afterwards, goes, what does it take to excite that guy? But that's why he was able to manage those last couple of laps. You know, Golding with his penalty, you know, Golding was pushing on, taking risks right behind him. So managing all that, getting him past, keeping Reynolds behind, you know, doing all that in those conditions. You know, that's why he could do that. But then, yeah, when he got out of the car, it's like, dude,
Come on,
you just won Bathurst. You got a pretty good one too. So, but that's his nickname's Clifford in the race team. Clifford the big red dog because he just sort of bounces around. And nothing really phases him.
It didn't look like it faced him at Bathurst. So I want to ask you that your car had a lot going on in that race. There's a lot of stuff that happened to it, around it, on it, in it. What's the state now? Because I did read a story the other day that Stephen Grove said that he has been offered big money to part with that car, but he's not going to do it. So obviously you can't pull it out of commission. We've got a championship and Matt Payne's right in the fight now. But how do you keep a Bathurst car but you keep it going? Have you gone and pulled all the Bathurst bits off it and out of it?
Yeah, so originally on Monday, Steve wanted to park the car
Fully.
and say, we'll use the spare car for the rest of the year.
Don't clean it or
Leave it
anything?
as.
Yeah, like Daytona spec.
Yeah, no, Steve, we're not doing that. We need that car. So
Remember your 2000 car stayed like that for a long time?
Yeah, it did. So we're like, no, Steve, we need to keep Matt.
Nice thought, Bart.
Yeah, fantastic thought. Need to keep Matt in his car. So negotiated. The compromise was every panel has come off the car.
Roof skin?
Roof skin, windscreens, wing.
Everything.
The whole,
As
finished. So
Quarantined?
yeah, all quarantined. All
They get a bit mouldy if they get.
No, so what happens is, as you guys know, in those rain races, you get all the smearing of the water and the mud and all the rest of it. But as the guys have been pushing it around, getting it back from Park Ferme, all the handprints. So it'll get wiped down, but nothing will get repaired.
Yep.
And then obviously we've catalogued the engine, the transaxle, the uprights, all of that. That's all been catalogued. So that'll all get used in rotation until the end of the year. And then that car will get parked. And that car's quite a special car anyway. That car was going in the museum at the end of the year anyway, because that's number one.
Yeah.
So that was the car that Dave Reynolds used in the first year. It was the first Grove Racing winner.
Is that the one that you tried to fire a wheel at Moffat?
Yeah, that's that car.
He didn't try to.
No, he
did.
did. Good shot, too.
Good shot.
Good shot.
You couldn't do it again if you tried.
Yeah. But so that car was quite special anyway, to the Grove family and to Grove Racing. So, that car's getting parked at the end of the year. So, but Steve will never sell that car. You talked about the GRM car, and Gary will never sell that car, and Steve will never, ever sell that car.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. We love the history of all that sort of stuff, and quite often the cars just get treated as well. Just press on with it to the next one. But winning Bathurst doesn't happen every day. And I
also said to Steve, if Matt does a really good job in the finals and wins the championship,
which is a chance,
could be a chance. I said if he was in the spare car, you'd have to build 2 new ones because you've got a championship winner and a Bathurst.
Park 2 up.
So let's just do a really good job with this one car, and it could be both.
Makes sense. Makes sense to me. Something I want to ask you too. So you said after the bend in the press conference that you weren't aggressive enough.
Yeah.
Did you go too far the other way at Bathurst in the early stages, or was it a case that everyone else was doing it because that was what needed to be done?
You guys were in the start of the race. Man, it was wild.
I wasn't.
Oh, that's right. You were.
You got benched.
Yeah. It was wild at the start of the race, and I was just like, what, guys? It's going to rain halfway through the race.
You probably also haven't been that far buried for.
No, been a little while, Muff. Been a little while, and I'm just
mid-pat band.
So I was behind the. Yeah, I mean, you can talk about the one with Lowndes, and I was behind D-Russ, and sort of found out afterwards that they had set their car up for full wet. And that sort of showed that's why that car was so strong at the end. He said that in the press conference. So he was wobbling a little bit in the dry, and he freely admitted it. So he was holding us up, and it was a struggle to pass him in a straight line. So I had to get him in another way. He made a mistake off the last corner. I got a run for him, and he was squeezing me pretty hard. And then I had no idea that Lowndes was up the inside of me. But even if I knew Lowndes was up the inside of me, I wouldn't have backed out of it anyway, because you had to go at that point.
Yeah.
It was that sort of race, wasn't it? But the whole days of it's an enduro, ease into it, put the lunchtime guy in.
Long gone.
Those days are long gone.
Well, it doesn't exist. There's not one period of the race. It's not even, we'll take it easy from the start line to turn one, lap one, because you've got to get track position every opportunity comes your way. Speaking
about looking at that car in the aftermath and what bits are being saved off it, is the spindle going to be saved off it? Because
there's only half a spindle saved.
No good.
Yeah. No, I didn't know until we got back to work. So the boys knew about it when they were sort of getting the car ready to put it in the truck, but we got back to work and I was there as the car came out. And there's the end of the spindle's gone. So it was really only the torque of the nut against the wheel
kept it on
because there was probably only 2.5 threads there. So if it was another pit stop, it would have just shattered the spindle, and that was it, game over.
And do you think that came from contact or just a failure? Hard to know?
How do you know? There was so much going on in that race. I mean, I'd say, I don't know, because it was on the left side of the car. I don't think, Matt had some contact with Cooper when they were doing their stuff at the chase. That was the other side of the car. So I don't know, but it was obviously okay for the last pit stop when the last set of wets went on. So it's happened at some point in that last stint. Yeah.
Well, you've worked really closely with Matt Payne. You said before about how he's, the heart rate doesn't go up very far. But what did you learn about him at Bathurst and that drive that he put in that you didn't know before you'd see? I mean, you've been working towards delivering on grand stages in moments that matter, and he did it. So what did you learn and see almost as the proud sort of mentor to go, that's what we've been talking about?
Yeah, proud's a really important and powerful word there, because I was so proud of him committing to go around the outside of the chase with whatever it was, 10, 12 laps to go. Because Matt Payne of the past would have probably played the percentages and not done that. And look, it didn't work out, but he made the decision going down Conrod Straight in the wet. It's still 280 odd k an hour. And it's the fastest corner in Australia. It's pouring rain, and he's committed to going around the outside to try and get the lead of the biggest race of the year and the biggest race of his career so far. So just making that commitment and sticking it out, I was most proud of that. Like, it didn't work out. Caught the car, all that fast twitch stuff kicks in and race car driver stuff kicks in, and he caught the car. That's all great. And then after that, even still after that, when he sort of got it out the other side of the chase, which is sometimes sketchy to do in the wet there, got back on in third, I was like, we're still absolutely a chance. There's enough time to get back in the game. But I'm not surprised about that low heart rate stuff at the end of the race and how he managed it all, because that's Matt's makeup.
So if he spins and is off the road at the chase there, you're saying, well, you did everything you could.
No, he did everything he could, absolutely, and it doesn't change. I mean, obviously, you're probably not as happy at the end of 1,000 Ks as you otherwise would be, but as him in that decision-making process, I was really, really proud of that, and that for him is so powerful going into the finals now, taking that with him.
And that's exactly where we're going to go. Gold Coast this week. points resets all done. The Enduro Cup winning points, bonus points, kind of nullify the Brock Feeney Sprint Cup winning points. It's 30 points heading to 3 rounds to go. 2 of those tracks are street tracks that Fords have been strong on. He's won in Adelaide before. He's been up there on the Gold Coast before. Sandown's a little bit more of a question mark. But I said on this show earlier in the year that he was Ford's #1 championship winning chance, 5 rounds ago. Proof's in the pudding there. He's right in this game here, right in it.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the team is, for sure. I mean, you know, Kai's going to have it up against him going to the Gold Coast as a rookie in the finals. That's going to, no doubt, that's going to be a challenge. But it's great for Kai just to experience the finals campaign in his first year, and as deep as he can go, anything is a bonus. For Matt, you know, who's on the pole there last year, he's got the qualifying lap record at the Gold Coast. As you mentioned, he had his first race win at Adelaide in 23 and dominated that one. So, yeah, I mean, he goes into these next 3 races with as good a form at those events as anyone. We were 4th in the 500 last year. We were 4th when the wheel fell off in 23 and got Moff. So we got reasonable speed at Sandown as well with the Penrite cars. But it's the finals now. It's completely different. It's a completely different mindset. No one knows how to go into it. No one knows how to approach it properly. So you know, everyone's got their seeding points and all the rest of it. But for me, it's just absolute start from zero.
And that's kind of what I'm looking forward to it, even though there are some advantages for those who are higher up the point scale. And I think we've overlooked here in all of this that you could be Brock Feeney, Matt Payne, Will Brown, the top runners in the championship, have an absolute shocker on Saturday, but you've got the chance to win the race Sunday to get yourself back through to the next round. So the win and you're in things in play here, but with so many teams with 2 cars in this 10, that brings in so many other elements of jeopardy in all this that you put some Gold Coast concrete walls around the thing, maybe a little bit of weather, stand back from the fence.
It's not like anything weird ever happens at the Gold Coast.
No.
It's not like those chicanes don't bite. So, yeah, I mean, you've got to have such a clear and open mind going into these ones, I feel like.
But surely they have to be heading there with some confidence. You mentioned the speed that Matt has shown there and on street circuits in the past, but I think also the big thing for Grove Racing is the strategy plays that they've been very good at this year. So that's an advantage to that organisation for sure.
Yeah, I mean, the team have been exceptional this year with that stuff. Just there, and it takes a lot of confidence. You know, we were talking about putting the wet tyre on at Bathurst when it really wasn't wet enough, but the confidence that was the right call.
Yep.
So there's been a few of those through the year where you, like, even at Tasmania when they stayed out and caught the full course yellow, the confidence just go, you know, we're just going to stick with this, we're going to play it out, and yeah, there's a bit of a luck involved with that, but
back yourself in.
You've got to be in the position to take advantage of that luck. I mean, it's easy to come in early under the way the safety car rules were there and play it safe, but the commitment and the confidence to stick to the strategy call is what really impresses me with that team. Yeah, it could go sideways at any stage and it could be the wrong call, but they have so much information in the background to fuel that confidence for their decision making. That
makes this part of the season all the more interesting when you've got a team that's now developed to that point where they can back something that's worked for them in the past and they've had proof that it absolutely does work. I want to quickly touch on for you, that's 6 wins now, that's 9 trips to the podium at the Bathurst 1000. Obviously, you are closer to the end than the start, but when you win at this point of your career, when you're a co-driver, you're not full-time, does it make you hungrier for another one, or does it make you look back on it all a little bit more and not perhaps have that same level of hunger?
Oh, no, I mean, you cannot go to any supercars race and not be hungry for success, and everyone has different markers of how to measure what success looks like for them. But you cannot go to any race and not be hungry for it, because if you're not hungry for it, you're just wobbling around. You're not doing your best job. You're not respecting the opportunity. You're not respecting the team. You're not respecting the event. So, yeah, you're still always incredibly hungry. If you commit to it, you've got to be hungry to execute it. And so for me, that hadn't changed going into this year's race. You know, obviously, as you mentioned, I'm closer to the end than I am the beginning. When I was full time and I was in my mid-30s, I was like, if I get to the other side of 40, I mean, that's not too bad. And, you know, I'm 48 now, so, you know, so still getting the opportunities is pretty cool.
Hang on, you didn't answer the question. Are you racing next year at Bathurst or not? Are you racing next year at Bathurst or not? Pretty straightforward.
I'm just enjoying winning this year's Bathurst right now, Jack, and I have, as it sits right now, I have a contract to drive next year.
All right. Thanks.
Jesus, that is as straight a bat as you'll get. You know?
But he thinks I'm going to give him something. Like, seriously, he knows me better than that.
I was going to say, you should know you better than that from being teammates at HRT over the years. Garth, in all seriousness, congratulations. You're in the history books now with some of the all-time greats. 6-time winner of the Bathurst 1000.
Oh, buddied up with LP now. We're even.
Oh, you're even.
Yeah. LP, so,
and Scaife. You guys are all hanging out together
yeah.
in the six club. So the drive for 7's got to continue. So we'll see how it goes. But in all seriousness, we'll see you on the Gold Coast this week.
See you there.
There is Garth Tander, winner for Ford, the 21st win for Ford in the great race. That was in a Mustang, but on our City Rural Insurance Brokers Classic car this week, we're going to look at another Bathurst car, but it's not a Mustang, it's a Ford Laser. Rebecca, this is a cool piece of Ford Bathurst history. Tell me about this Laser and how it came to be, because I remember this car.
Yeah. So this is it's a 1990 KF Laser, TX3 Turbo all-wheel drive. And this is the car that Ken Douglas and Brett Youlden drove at the 1991 Bathurst 12 Hour. They finished second outright.
And this car, though, it looks like it looked in 91, but it's had a very long life. We almost lost this one somewhere along the way.
We almost did, yeah. So after the 12 Hour, it went and did Targa and finished really well at that event, and then they banned it from that event. It went back to hill climbing in South Australia, and unfortunately was in a panel shop fire, and the front half of the car was pretty badly burned. So it had been effectively written off, and it had sat around for a while, and there was a competitor in South Australia who drove rally cars and bought it as a wreck. And while she was pulling it apart, she smashed open the glove box, and there was the logbook with Ford Motor Company and the Bathurst entry in it. She realised she was onto something pretty special.
Tell me about what this car has meant this weekend at Winton, the Festival of Speed, touring car tributes. There's a range of history here. I've seen people coming up and down to this car, so what's everyone been asking you about it?
Everybody just wants to look at it for a start. They reckon it looks amazing with the day glow. And yeah, just having a look at a piece of history. We don't see these production cars very often. You know, they've been lost along the way, a lot of them, and it's so glad we've been able to save this. And people are just rapt to see something that they drove on the road back in the day, and they bought the car because it came second at Bathurst. So, you know, it's pretty awesome.
What is it like to drive here this weekend? Because you're out there on the track with some V8 supercars, some Tirana Group C cars. There's quite an eclectic mix out there, but what's this thing going like?
It's a bit of a rocket, actually. We had a few problems with overboosting initially, so we've solved that pretty much. But yeah, it's a rocket ship. I'm able to carry so much speed through the corners, and the four-wheel drive. You know, I've come from a rear-wheel drive race car. Getting into this, I can really have a red-hot go through this sweeper, and it's not going to go out on me. A little bit of understeer, but it's just such a rocket ship to drive. I love driving. It's so fun.
What are you going to do with it next, though? I mean, it's had plenty of attention at Winton. What are the future plans for this thing?
Yeah, I'd like to go to the Adelaide Motor Festival next year, and we're looking at maybe the Geelong Revival and events like that in the future. Hopefully we'll get historic certification for the car, and we can do a lot more historic events. But yeah, just keen to keep it circulating and have people come and ogle it.
A big thanks to City Rural Insurance Brokers for their support of the Undercut here. They've been on the scene since 1995 and can help you with your insurance needs, whether it's business, transport, trades, farming and much, much more. Grab a quote now, jump online, cityrural.au, and they can be your insurance pit crew.
The race is on for the Shell Motorsport Collection. Better be quick. Collect all 8 while stocks last. Only available at Shell OTR and Shell Ready Express.
Time for our top 5 fueled by Shell V-Power, and it's time, well, we're going to the Gold Coast, boys. So let's go to the Gold Coast with some V8 Ute action. Our top 5 is, well, carnage on the coast, and we start at number 5, 2015. Hairpin's always a tough place.
It is, isn't it? It's always a concertina like this. This was the new part of the circuit when the IndyCar guys stopped coming here. So it was a new corner in 2010, I think.
Oh, just
and then look at that.
It was over.
On the way through.
He thought it was over.
Never over. This is number 4, 2013 in the fence down at, that's one way to enter Main Beach.
Yeah, that's here we go. We're on board now. The Schmick transport rocket fired it up the inside into the back of the Ute, and kabam!
Jack's getting Ray Rab's warrant here. Let's go way back. This is 2001, the first year of the V8 Brutes.
Oh. Whoa!
Contact down at turn 1. Damien White was the man who was doing the dispatching.
Ice White.
Yep. Steve Robertson there.
Robbo.
Yeah, Robbo. You see him in the Eggleston pits these days in Super 2. Not the best place to park. The debut of V8 Brutes. Bit of axle tramp there.
And the mufflers, it looks like it's hanging out the back.
Get out of there. This one, this is high drama. 2010. Cars everywhere. Kim Jane's in. Bang.
Whoa!
When you put one in the fence,
they're all in the fence.
Gary McDonald's parked up here. This is what happens. This is Ute stuff. This is Gold Coast, and half the shunt happens when they're trying to drive away from the first shunt.
Yeah, look, this. Oh, look at the Bob Jane T-Mart's bonnet up over the windscreen.
Bob's head there.
Yeah, Kim doesn't look very pleased with that. It was great racing. These are good memories, Noons.
Not for the guys who had to pay for the bills.
No.
Number one,
filthy.
this is going to be nasty. Peter Burnett, watch this. Boom, gone. There's the concrete wall. He's going to get the other one on the way through here as well.
Oh, look at the crowd jumping back.
Yeah, smart call. Don't stand so close to the fence. Always some chaos. Always some carnage when you set the Utes to surface paradise. That is our top 5, fueled by Shell V-Power. The Utes on the coast, drama every time. Time for the workbench here on the Undercut, and gents, the silly season is well into swing for main game seats, for co-driver seats, for team associations. There's plenty to cover off in the last few weeks since we were last here on the desk. So let's start with Nick Perkins. He's made the call. He's out. He's stopping full-time racing. He instantly now becomes quite the endurance co-driver signing for next year. Were we surprised by this news? Because I think it caught a lot of people on the hop.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Nick's at the stage of needing to retire full-time, but it sort of, feels like he's made the call, possibly because there wasn't a full-time seat there. But, I think that, even if Nick went back to co-driving next year, that he would then still be a possibility to get back in. Anyway, he's made that decision, and, yeah, he's going to be one of the number 1 draft picks for co-drives next year. Really good opportunity for Nick there. I think it'd be interesting to see what happens. If Garth doesn't continue at Groves, or if Jamie Whincup doesn't continue at Triple Eight, there's a couple that come to mind, but there's also going to be still other drives available, so that's going to be a very interesting one.
And that now leaves us to talk about Matt Stone Racing, where Nick is departing from. Cam Hill's already confirmed he's going to Brad Jones Racing, and when you sort of sniff through it all, from what we can all piece together, everyone's accepted Jack LeBrock is going to go back there from Erebus, and Zach Bates is a name that's been linked to getting a main game start with MSR, so we might see a double change there. But the really interesting part was only, a matter of a year or so ago, Nick Perk had extended his contract and now he's out from that team. It's clear that there's been some budget issues there over the journey, but there's a chance here for some other guys to slip, in the case of one, back into a seat, and another young guy who did a great job at Bathurst, Zach Bates, could be the guy that fills the other chair.
Just goes to show you sometimes, Noons, the contract is only worth as much as the paper that it's signed on.
You sound like a bloke who's had this happen to you over the journey. It's a thing
but
about...
I agree with Perks, Nick is certainly still more than capable to be in that field full-time or in a full-time capacity. But clearly he's made a personal decision that he's prepared to give away the full-time driving, but he will definitely be a prized co-driver picking, that's for sure.
It's a long list of guys who are going on to the endurance driver market. Jackson Evans being confirmed he wasn't going to return to SCT, which made everyone then go, well, hang on, if you're announcing who's leaving and not announcing who's arriving, something's going on here, and what's going on is that wreck, or charter, or ownership of Peter Smith's, that's going to move to Triple H. So they will run 3 Mustangs next year, 2 Red Bull Ampol cars for Brock Feeney and Will Brown, and SCT now move in there with a pile of different names that have been linked to that seat. That's kind of what it's going to look like. So Ryland Gray's been linked. There's a few other names, but there's plenty of guys floating around who could fit into this very nicely. And Chaz Mostert's name kept coming up over the course of Bathurst too.
But then the flow-on effect of that is obviously the confirmation of SCT Motorsport going to Triple Eight as a third car means that we'll only have 5 Toyotas on the grid next year, as opposed to the 6 that was, released
Which was what everyone expected, wasn't it? It puts Jackson Evans as well. He's on the endurance driver market, which would make sense for BJR to snap him up because Declan Fraser is not going to be available to them now. He'll go to Premier with Jaden Ojeda. So another team that's made a wholesale change. So there's teams in the mid to tail end of the pack who are just throwing the deck at this. They're changing everything for next year.
They are, Noons. And just speaking of Jackson Evans, I'll put him 2 and 2 together and think he might end up at Walkinshaws as a co-driver. He's got a relationship with Morris Finance, who sponsor the team there. That's what I'd be thinking. So I'm trying not to mix the co-driver market up with the full-time market, but that's what I'd be suggesting. These drivers that have come out of the full-time driving, whether it be Jackson Evans, Nick Perkins, we've seen in the past, obviously Tim Slade. Anyone that's come out is a number 1 draft pick for the co-driver role. So yeah, I think as much as everyone's trying to get the full-time stuff sorted, this week or 2 after Bathurst, the co-driver market, the phones run rampant, and you sort of got to get the full-time stuff sorted to know what's available in co-driver land and vice versa.
It's the flow-on effect of what cascades down and through. What about you two? We can't exclude you from silly season discussion. Are you going again in endurance land? What are you going to do? Are you locked at Tickford? What's the story for you two?
Well, time will tell, Noons.
You sound like Garth.
Well,
Noons,
have to wait and see. But I'd certainly like to go again, but whether there's an opportunity there or not, I'm not quite sure at the moment, but still feel like I've got a bit left on the table.
I'd agree, Moff, you've still got a bit left on the table. I've done 10 one-year driving deals, Noon, so I can guarantee you in the 11th year nothing's changed. And between now and next year, either something will happen or it won't.
We mentioned just before about Premier's drivers. They've got a new team principal coming. Well, he's new old. 2026, Roland Dane's returning to the supercars paddock. He's been advising Pete Shibris and that team for a little while now, but he's actually going to become the team principal. And were you surprised that he's going to do this because of the success he's achieved at Triple Eight? He's got to get back up and do this all over again now and start from a team that's kind of where Triple Eight once was.
It's a bit strange for me, Noons. I've actually got the utmost respect for Roland Dane and what he's achieved, especially with Triple Eight and in the business of supercars, but I guess I don't know why he's doing it. You sold your business, you got out of the race team, you gave up the role at Triple Eight. He's got a Triple Eight tattoo on his arm, and I don't know what he needs to achieve here. He's have his own reasons. He's no longer on the PWR board, so he sort of freed himself up for this opportunity. And yeah, I mean, he's obviously a very good team owner, team principal, so it's a good get for Peter Zibris, but I'm just not sure why you'd bother doing it, but everyone's got a reason.
It's an interesting element to have him back in the paddock now when we kind of all thought, well, he's been and gone and done his thing here. But I can't help but think that he's not very good with idle time, I could only presume with Roland Dane. I don't think he would be very good at relaxing.
Well, one thing you can't say that Peter Zibris is not having a crack.
True.
So he's having a big swing now. Like he's drafted in some high-profile engineering talent with Ludo there, other members of that Premier Racing team that are heavily credentialed. But if you're going for the kingpin, well, he's got Roland. So
yeah.
I was very surprised when I read that news, as I'm sure most people were, but there would have been obviously some people that would have seen that coming as well. So between having a double driver change with Jaden Ojeda coming in, Declan Fraser, but with Roland sitting at the top of that team, well, there'll be no excuses now.
And that team now also, with Richie Stanaway not being there next year, he's in the endurance driver market too. The quality of co-driver for 2026 is through the charts, really. It's quite amazing, some of the names that are looking for a gig or are quietly doing gigs behind the scenes at the moment that we'll find out about more in the upcoming weeks and months of the Supercars Silly Season merry-go-round. So always plenty going on. And just quickly with Erebus too, I mean, everyone's pretty much penciled in Job Stewart to drive alongside Cooper Murray. They are going young. Like, they've got a history of going for youth. They're going really young this time around.
Yeah, and good on them for doing that, Noons. I mean, they've certainly got the opportunity to do that because, as we know, Betty's very successful, and it gives the opportunity to, really have a crack with your drivers and your team personnel. And, they've stuck to their guns, and they're going to do it again with bringing some fresh young talent through. So it's a very commendable thing from not only Betty, from Barry as well. And I think Job did such a good job in the endurance races that, I'm really keen now to see how he goes because as a co-driver, myself and James, there's sort of one thing to do the co-driving, and then obviously Supercars is a qualifying championship. And, you know, the Erebus Super 2 car hasn't been very competitive for Job. He hasn't probably been able to show his full potential in the Super 2 game. So, you need to get on your front foot, and the first year is about trying to extract that one-lap car speed to qualify in a position where you can then have a crack at getting some race results, because without qualifying well in supercars, you're never going to race that well. It's
a bit Days of Thunder, is it? Let's get your own car and see how you do in the crowd. Isn't that what he says?
But if the endurance races were in fact an audition for Job Stewart, well, I don't think he could have auditioned any better.
And if they weren't an audition, and if the decision was already made, he's largely justified the decision to put him in that car for next year with Jack LeBrock moving on.
And it just reminds me of what Bathurst was all about. It was always a young kid from Formula Ford got an opportunity in a second team car before the co-driver split up, and if you did a good job, you're on the grid. Yeah. So it shows that the system, in a sense, is kind of working well, and it's good that someone can succeed off the back of, you know, what they've done talent-wise. You know, it's not about commercial sponsorships and all that business. Hey, this kid's the fastest guy we can find, and we want him in our race car, so it's commendable.
Absolutely. They've got a history of doing it, and they're going to do it all over again. So the workbench always exploring the topics. The silly season and the co-driver silly season is one that is going to stretch on for some time. Next up here on The Undercut, it's time to pull the plug. Plenty to plug, plenty to cover off on this episode, and as always, the Shell Motorsport Collection is a must. We've got the cars here on the desk again. Last week, the Nissan Formula E car came out, boys. I know that's probably not turning you on as much as the Formula 1 car or the Supercar as well. 8 to collect. You can get them from Shell OTR and Shell Ready Express, and they actually operate. You can Bluetooth drive these things off the Shell Racing app. So I don't have it here under the desk with me at the moment to just drive one straight off the edge here. It's probably not the look that we're going for here, but 8 in the set. You can buy the tin that they all go together in. There's a bit of something for everyone here, basically.
Yeah, I'm going to have to start stealing these Noons. My son Mason will probably love these, and I'm not sure how, he doesn't have a phone, so I'm not sure if he'd be able to use them that well, but certainly hit with the kids, and saw a few of them at the various Shell servos on the road trip to Bathurst.
You were doing a bit of driving on your way back and up from the mountain. Plenty more to plug here on the Undercut, and something that's really exciting that's been announced today, in fact, by the team at V8 Sleuth. We are making the V8 Sleuth magazine. Issue 1 is out in time for Christmas. You can order it now. You can subscribe as well. 6 issues a year, bi-monthly. Check it out. Green-eyed monster on the front, boys. Is that an appropriate first issue car?
That's very good, Noons. You know, how many pages in this magazine? Do we know that answer?
104 pages.
Oh, great.
$14.95. Going to be available from news agencies and distribution areas, as well as through our website, through the V8 Sleuth Superstore. We felt it was time that there's a bit of a lack of print material out there. You know, when you go to the airport, you're looking for a magazine that's motorsport flavoured. There's not much going around here.
Perkins Engineering vehicle up there on the front cover.
Chassis 21.
There you go.
The Diet Coke mobile.
The dude's Diet Coke Commodore, which is just been put back to Diet Coke VP spec. It's up at the National Motor Racing Museum. So plenty of reading there, whether you're into your 80s, your 90s, your noughties, your V8s, your Bathurst. The Ford Laser's got a gig in the mag. It's got a gig on the Undercut. It's in there as well as Peter Brock's test of a Mazda RX-7. Plenty of other stuff in time for Christmas as well that you need to get across. The John Bow book Driven is open for pre-order. It'll be available in time for Christmas. It's, of course, available from superstore.v8sleuth.com.au. 30 years this year since he won the championship in the Shell FAI Ford, as it was then, back in 1995. You boys, do you like Bathurst history?
Well, I think you know the answer now.
Yes.
A bit of history.
Partial bit of a history. Well, you need to get yourself some of the Bathurst DVDs that we've got as well. Full races. This is about the only place that you can get the full race of some of these years. 2013, the Super Cheap Auto Bathurst 1000. That's on the website, as well as a whole range of other full races from the 70s, 80s, 90s and the noughties. Some of the highlights from you two in among some of those years from overtime as well. Colin Bond, Hall of Famer, legend icon. He was at Bathurst just a week or so ago. His new book was released. It's out now, Full Tilt with John Smales. Really covering off that era of Ford and Holden. They're the boys at our V8 Sleuth Open night that we had up at Mount Panorama. He really does open up about Brock and Moffat and muscle cars and Bathurst in that era, because Bondy's the only guy who was teammates with both of them.
Anything controversial?
I think there's a few things in there. I think he's definitely said it how he wants to say it, that's for sure. We've not seen Bondi do a book before, so there's a bit of interesting reading in there, I think, if you're a fan of the 70s and 80s. And not too much on the Hyundai Elantra, though. Probably doesn't get too much of a run in the Bondi book, fair to say. Jack, though, Perkins Engineering, caps. They've gone crazy lately.
Yes.
Didn't you re-release one that's gone out of stock?
Yes, it's not the one that Moff's got in his hand, but we re-released a retro 93 to 95 themed Castrol sort of looking hat, and it's gone wild. So we've just got to work out how to get a few more of them in stock. But thanks everyone for supporting our online store. It's much appreciated.
It's a good problem to have. It's a very good problem to have. Gents, Wobbold, thank you so much. Well done on your Enduro Cup efforts with the Blanchard team, with Tickford Racing, respectively. Moff, you're not done for the year, though. You Trans-Aming for the rest of the year? Got a bit more to go.
That's a good point. You've just triggered my mind. I do have a couple of Trans Am races left. So one at Mallala, which will be about 20 years since I've raced at Mallala, and then we finish around the streets of Adelaide. So back-to-back weekends for Trans Am towards the end of November.
We've got a bit more to talk about. We'll have another show here on the Undercut after the Gold Coast and before the Sandown Supercars, and then another show between Sandown and that Adelaide Grand Final, which we're really looking forward to. Big thanks to the whole team at City Rural Insurance Brokers and the team at Shell V-Power for backing us here on the Undercut. Hope you enjoyed our post-Bathurst 1000 episode. We'll catch you again very soon.